Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and just tell me what they do all day and let me record how this affects us. Thank you for listening. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I do actually quite vividly remember that I always wanted to work in a zoo, specifically working with monkeys.
Oh, nice.
So if you get these, we always used to have these books where you write in, your name and, what band you like, what color you like, and, then your dream job. And mine was working in a zoo with monkeys. Having grown up now, living in a house full of 3 boys, I do think it came from a bit of a maternal, my maternal side. I think it's the kind of caring side. So I think that was my first career wish. Once I've come away from that, I wanted to be the youngest author in Germany. That was also on the list, yeah. So I enjoyed writing, creative writing. It was short stories about dinosaurs.
I mean, what was your ceiling on that? Like, when did you age out of that? I have to publish before I'm 13.
I know, but that's it. I don't think I've ever done the research in that. I quite enjoyed writing, then when certain things get published in those school magazines, my mum still has some of those, very cringy. She still gets them out. I'm like, Mum, I was 10. Don't bring that story out. I don't want to read it now. So I think it was just one of those, dream big moments, I guess, because it's something I enjoyed. I did not become the youngest author in Germany. I also did not continue writing fiction. So, you won't get like something like Harry Potter from me. I'm not that good. But yeah, so that was one. And then I did actually study general linguistics.
Oh, wow.
So, coming from the zoo to, from the bookshop, and I went into uni. And started studying general linguistics in Germany. I studied, which was great, which I really liked. It had quite a few different elements in it. Obviously, language in itself, computer linguistics. It had the speech therapy element in it as well. So it was quite a broad spectrum. So I guess what I wanted to be, if you summarize all 3 of these and think about if I think about what I wanted to be, I guess I always wanted to work for language, with communication, with my work. I think that's the kind of, and the caring side, I think that probably summarizes it quite nicely.
Nice. I'm going to throw this in randomly because you made me think of it, that you wanting to be the youngest author in Germany. One of my ideas when I was younger was I was going to be like, I'll be the youngest person to swim the channel. I'm going to do that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. How old were you then?
I don't know, but
were you good at swimming at least?
I was reasonable at swimming, but I wouldn't say particularly good. I don't think I would have made it.
No, but it's an ambition, right? It's an ambition. Do you still swim now?
No, I'm rubbish.
Also, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Activity. I need to get off my ass.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on your bucket list.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe I could be the oldest person to swim the channel.
Exactly. Adapt, change, and adapt. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, survival of the fittest. Absolutely.
You're listening to Series 5, Episode 44, and to my guest, Farina McKay. This is another Squadcast interview recorded on the 17th of December, 2024. Hello, listener. In this episode, we hear from Farina McKay, a dynamic professional who reminisces about her childhood dreams of working with monkeys at a zoo, then navigating through creative writing aspirations and ultimately finding her niche in linguistics and sales within the cybersecurity field. Farina shares her insights into her current role in an identity advisory company, discussing the challenges and rewards of sales and the impact of remote work, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, she touches upon her advocacy for more women in tech, the complexities of social media, and the importance of real, meaningful human connections in the digital age. Right, let's do this. Episode 154 of Working Hours with Farina McKay. Okay, so I'm going to jump us straight into what are you doing now?
Now I'm in sales. So I work, I would say, I'm in sales. I work for an identity advisory company.
Okay.
That's basically cybersecurity at the part of cybersecurity. I think that's what people understand better. And I head up the revenue, business development, sales side of things. Yeah.
So how did you get into it? How did you end up there? Did you come through... I imagine there's kind of two routes to that. You either came through a business route into IT, or you came through an IT route up through into business.
Yeah. I mean, I guess obviously, again, looking back at what I always wanted to do with my life and where I then maybe quite early on also saw my talent again with communication, with words, with, language. I actually had my first proper paid job away from uni here in the UK. So obviously when I was in Germany, I was still in uni. I worked in a marketing agency. I had the, typical side jobs and everything, working in a bar. But I always felt like I connect really well with people. So I guess the kind of going into sales was quite a natural it felt like a natural progression for me. Coming from obviously what I've done before, what I've studied and everything. So I always wanted to go into that kind of communication side. So sales felt quite natural to me and quite fun. No matter what kind of sales, whether that was account management or the cold calling side, I was never afraid of that. I always felt quite confident in doing that. And then getting into the tech world, actually, I would say is genuinely through manifesting. So, and I could definitely say that. So going into tech has happened because I was manifesting the right job for me. As weird as that sounds, but it does work, like the secret and all that. It did work for me at least. So I needed a job that fit around my family commitment. And I wanted a job that would fit around my family commitments. Not just that I needed it because I felt like, I want to be there more for my family. I want to drop off my children at school. I want to be able to pick them back up. I want to be able to have that kind of freedom, whilst, also being able to afford, just being able to live. Obviously you need that as well at the same time. And I was manifesting that. I remember that. I was running on the treadmill and I was manifesting that I will get a job that does allow me to do that. And luckily enough, it worked. So I started off with an American company in cybersecurity. And then from there, you build relationships, you build, connections, and you make lasting, you leave lasting experiences. Is that how you say that? Or, you obviously, you leave an impression on people. And then, when they move on to other companies, you get connected with them again and they say, hey, there's an opening. And this is actually how I ended up now with .next Europe as well. It's a colleague that started this company at the beginning of this year, and he needed someone to head up his sales motion. And he remembered me from years ago when we worked for a different vendor together. I was doing sales there as well. And he called me up initially to just get some advice on the whole thing. So I said, yeah, no problem. Great to hear from you. And then it just spiraled into, actually, this sounds like a great role. Are you really trying to just get advice? Or are you trying to get me to work with you again? And then that's how it happened. That I worked obviously with .next Europe now. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so let's do a bit more about what the role itself entails. So
Mhm.
that your sort of day to day. Is it more an email job, more a phone job? Are you very client based? Is there a lot of face to face to it? Are you out and about? Are you working from home? Like, what's your sort of
Mm.
where are you based in, and what's your engagement with people? Are you very much internally focused, or are you very externally focused? Like, where are you kind of situated?
It is actually a bit of everything.
I
I always
thought you
say
were
I'm
going to
like a
say
like a hat
that.
collector. Like working for a startup, you are genuinely wearing all of the hats,
Yeah.
most of them at the same time. So because it is quite a young business still, I do a lot of the operational side as well.
Hmm.
I had to set up our CRM. I have to do the marketing side of things, just getting the brand out there, brand recognition, any kind of anything to do with marketing and brand recognition is something I do as well. Then the operational side, but when it comes to the more customer facing sales side of things, it is again a mix of both. So I am remote. We don't have an office here. And
Hmm.
obviously, well, we do have an office. Oh, okay, let me start that again. So we have 3 offices, but I work remotely.
Hmm.
So my day to day is mainly just being in front of my computer, in front of my laptop, connecting with people, using obviously social media, things like LinkedIn to speak to people, to connect to people. We have had lots of events this year, so we do a lot of face to face. I have had quite a few face to face meetings here more locally because quite a few big companies as well. When you tell them, oh, actually we are just around the corner, they're like, great, let's meet for a coffee rather than
Hmm.
having the
Yeah.
standard 30-minute Zoom call.
Yeah.
People really value that. So it really is a mix of both. A lot of face-to-face meetings, or quite a few face-to-face meetings, a lot of events. And then, of course, before and after, it's a lot of following up and connecting with people virtually through email, call, LinkedIn,
Mm.
social media, those kind of things.
So this is you're fairly recent in this role, aren't you?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
is it post COVID that you come into this role?
Yes, I think you can say post-COVID. So
Yeah.
for about, I've worked here now for about half a year. I was in sales as well for another company that was an American based company as well.
Hmm.
Not so much a startup anymore. When I started there, it was a startup,
Mm.
but it evolved. Then I was there with the other company actually for 6 years, I think.
Mm.
And then
Which
I
is
was
a long
approaching.
time in that.
It is a long
Yeah.
time. It is a long time, and that was tech as well. It
I
was a
mean,
SaaS
that's a
business.
company that's gone from that size to that
Yes.
size
Yes.
in that
Yeah,
role.
exactly. Yeah. So that's why I guess another startup didn't scare me because, the company that started small and then scaled up at times it was just as messy of a startup at times, where you think like, hey, actually, this shouldn't happen here anymore, but it still did. So yeah, startup life didn't scare me. Although now this is really a level up for me being even more involved. And having to make decisions,
Mm.
my actual own decision that
Mm.
people have to follow.
Power.
I know. But you know what? I think when you get to that stage, you actually realize nobody's got a clue.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look up to people and you think, wow, how do they know that? They don't. They don't know that. They just say that. They guess and make it, that they estimate based on their knowledge, based on their
Yeah.
experience. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that they do know that that's the right way. So in
Yeah.
that position I'm in now, I guess, I think, I hope I know what I'm doing. And it's working so far. But I think what I've learned from this power is that everybody's just winging it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Um. So what was I going to say? Okay. Let's do the COVID question.
Hmm.
Obviously, you weren't in this company.
Hmm.
Um. Feel free to talk about or not talk about any experiences during the process. But what I'm really interested with the question is kind of like your workload.
Okay.
So the going into lockdown, did it go really crazy? Did it drop off? Did it stay about the same? And then sort of
Hmm.
coming out the other side, what were there any changes that were permanent to the way that you worked? I would imagine, I mean, because I guess you're already working in tech, so you've already got pre-COVID experience of working
Hmm.
remotely and working from home, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I guess so when obviously COVID happened, It was, and I mean, that's a really bad, like really bad to compare, really bad comparison. But, it's like a snow day. When you see a snow day, people are like, oh, I can't get into work. Well, my work is upstairs, like I can't get upstairs. Unfortunately, there's no snow day for me. So, I do have to say that obviously, fortunately, my work being remote didn't change as much because I could still fulfill my role and look after my customers and connect with new clients. I could still do that working from home. So that was a benefit, of course, in my role. And being in a tech industry or being in the tech industry, our industry, I would even say to a degree, was thriving because more and more people needed what we had to offer. Because now there was this remote workforce everywhere. Everybody had to work from home. Everybody had to be able to do that. So what we delivered was actually what they needed. So our workload, maybe even increased because a lot more people all of a sudden said, hey, what you've got is what we need now. And we've never looked at this before. So can you help us? The kind of working from home situation. I mean, I think the biggest change and challenge was having the kids at home at the same time. Because obviously when you work from home, you don't usually have your children in the background that also need entertaining.
Yeah.
And then it's that kind of parental fear and the guilt that you have to say, I can't just put them in front of the TV. I can't just let them play on their Xbox and whatnot all day because they do actually have to learn as well, like a couple of days, fair enough. But so that was very challenging to have to work from home to deliver the same level of quality of work that you always delivered because you were always home based. To do that whilst having kids in the background was very tricky. I've also been quite fortunate that I was actually part of COVID on maternity leave. So that helped.
That must have been scary though as well.
Oh God. Well, I remember getting a call. So I was pregnant and I was at the theater with my husband and I had a call. My mum from Germany was planned on coming over. She planned on coming over. I think it was maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks or months still to go. And we were sitting in the theater waiting for the performance to start. And I had lots of calls from my mum and I didn't see them. And then I had a WhatsApp message. It was an audio message. And I listened to it and she's like, okay, Farina, well, don't panic, but there's something happening that will stop me from, she worked in a hotel, in a hospital. She was a surgery nurse. And so I can't remember anymore if she maybe had the information before kind of we had as well in Germany. But she said, listen, there's a lot going on at the moment. It is not safe for me to travel. I cannot come. It is quite dangerous. And she gave me like this information. I remember sitting in this theater that was slowly filling up. And I showed this to my husband. I said, we need to get out of here. This is dangerous. We need to get out of here. And we got into the car and I literally had a bit of a breakdown saying, what is this? How dangerous and how scary is this going to be with me being pregnant? And, my mum now not being able to come, my mum as a surgery nurse, that she was always the one that calmed me down. And I'm like, oh my God, got my finger, am I going to die?
Yeah, you'll be fine.
And now she's the one telling me, no, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
So it was very scary. We got through it okay. A few obviously bumps along the way, not being able to go to a scan together, obviously my husband, bless him, he was very scared for me as well. He was still working. His company had to keep going in the third sector. And so he was still involved with people. He was still seeing people daily, and he was very scared to obviously bring anything home to us. So it was very scary. Like I said, we got through it. And then there was the part of obviously being on maternity leave, trying to look after the kids. And I remember that I was quite strict with our daily routines. So we used to walk to school. So in the morning, I did actually make the kids, our oldest at that time, then obviously the baby in the pram. We went for a walk before we started anything. So we woke up, had breakfast, and then I got everybody dressed and said, we are going for a walk now because we're not just sitting down and starting to work. Yeah. We will actually get dressed, go out, get a bit of fresh air, get moving, and then we can start our day.
We're not developing agoraphobia here. Let's get outside.
That's it, and it's, I can't do that. Again, something, obviously working from home, I can't just get up and sit at my desk. That doesn't feel healthy.
No.
So I try to keep going. with regards to workload, again, obviously in our industry, we were quite fortunate that the solution that we offered was needed. So that was okay. But then our dip and our kind of layoffs happened a little bit later. So it was kind of like a delayed layoff curve that we hit once people were slowly going back to the offices. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do Brexit. That'll be quite quick.
Okay.
I think we'll probably run through a lot of these quite quickly. So I might.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. Yeah. I've got a hairdresser's appointment at 3, so.
Well, we'll get you there in
3:30 actually is, yeah, so it's fine. I just have to jump off at 3. I've got until 3.
So we'll do Brexit next.
I like that question.
So I would imagine work-wise, well, I don't know, but I would imagine that the work impact hasn't been massively noticeable. I'll ask you the question, let you answer. So
Yeah.
Has Brexit changed anything for you? Have you noticed any change in your work since we have Brexited?
Brexited it. Is that the word?
Well, I know
it.
the official documentation is an EU exit, or is what it's supposed to be called.
I mean, people can't see me now. I'm shaking my head, still shaking my head. I'm native German. I've got a German passport. And while everybody else has to queue going into Spain, I walk past them, waving my German passport saying, "You wanted this." Because I skip all the queues. And my English husband is behind me saying, "Please, can you get me through?" I'm like, "Of course you can." So has Brexit affected me? Or, it's actually a question that I've been asked a lot, because when Brexit happened, I worked in an office for a manufacturing business, also in sales, but for a manufacturing business. So I wasn't in tech then. And I worked with a German market. And honestly, every phone call was, "So how's it going? Have you still got this? Have you still got that? And what's going to happen?" So, the question has been asked a lot. Ultimately, looking back now, has it affected me and my role with my job that much? No, not that much. Apart from, being in that situation where you think like, well, is this going to be very tricky? Again, for the manufacturing business, obviously, they then considered, are we just going to open up in Germany? It was a global company anyways, are we still keep trading from the UK, or do we just do that in Germany now and, over in Europe? So that definitely changed for them. And you had to jump through a few more hoops when it comes to sending parcels, to your family again, or when you had to do shipments, all the extra documents and things like that. But yeah, I guess for me personally, again, because I am still German, I do still have a German passport. I think I managed to avoid quite a few things that could have been very annoying. Although saying that, I mean, that just makes me think I did have to apply for this settlement status. And that was scary.
Yeah.
That was scary. I've lived at that point in the UK for such a long time. And I actually had a job in the UK before I even set my foot onto the plane. I sorted everything out whilst I was still in Germany. I was a taxpayer, everything. And you have to fill in those documents to ask if you may please stay.
Yeah,
and
to ask some faceless system in this country where it doesn't work because they haven't funded it for years.
It was weird. And then it says you will get the answer within 90 days. And I'm like, okay, well, I also have a son here in the UK, and so yeah, that was a bit weird. I've got quite a few German friends, Polish friends, and actually my Polish friend, I think her daughter had to apply at the same time, I think, or was it just her? I can't remember. But her reply didn't come through on time. So we were all like, oh my God, what does that mean, right? And then the next thing is obviously for family to come over. There was a limit on how many days you were allowed to stay. So I think it was 30 days maximum every 3 months or 6 months, and it does sound scary when you usually have your mum coming over to help you in the 6-week holidays and things like that, So I guess, again, how has Brexit affected my work? Other than getting lots of questions and a lot of German clients saying, what actually is going on? What are people thinking over there? Are you for real? And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with me. Work, maybe not so much. once the dust settled. But yeah, wow, Brexit. Really, guys? But we did it. So, it happened. Can't change it
For,
anymore, can
yeah,
we?
for
Although I
whatever
think,
that was.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Oh, exactly. I mean, the worst thing was, that's the next thing. That those messages, those propaganda
mm,
things like bringing up the war. What? Like this is how it's all going to be. We will all have tea towels around our heads again, and we'll be strong. And like there were people in my well, don't want to say immediate family, but
mm.
that were actually like, yeah, this is going to be really good. Make Britain good again, and all those kind of things. And you just think, really?
Well, yeah, what specifically about this thing that nobody's explained or said anything or has
Yeah.
any plan for is going to be so great?
Well,
Just all of it.
was
Don't
that the
ask me
same people
specifics.
that I know? Exactly. Yeah. Was that the same people that like put COVID on like marketing messages or something? I don't know.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to move us on. I'm going to move
Good.
us on to climate change. Oh, because I know me, we could spend a good 40 minutes
Yeah.
going on about Brexit.
You better stop me from ranting more. I fully agree.
But also, this should kind of be a space because I don't feel too bad showing my obvious bias that I think it's a silly, stupid thing, a complete waste of time. I can
Mhm.
see why. Like, I don't think the EU did themselves any favors, especially with Greece.
No.
Um,
No.
so I can
No.
I can see part of the argument, and also the only people who were ever going to turn up for that vote were the people who wanted to leave.
Mhm.
That was always going to be the way. The only thing that surprised me was that it was so close.
I
Um,
didn't. I know. I didn't. I was devastated. I was devastated when those news came through. Because you do feel a little bit like it's a kick in the teeth for
mm.
someone.
Oh, I
Well,
thought things were this
yeah,
way. Oh,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
they're not. Yeah.
yeah. And I think especially because how it was marketed,
Mm,
from a lot of places where you just feel like obviously this is not about the economy. This is about something else.
mm,
And I am a foreigner. And I was a foreigner at that time.
mm,
So it didn't feel great.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Climate change
yeah, let's do
also
that.
doesn't feel great.
All the fun things. They can be quite bleak, these questions.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, in your work, uh, how do we want to phrase it? Well, I'll just put the question to you straight. Like within your work, is
Mhm.
climate change a factor? I mean, you're an employee, so it's I guess that's as much to do with the company and their attitude to things.
Mhm.
It's not like there's a sectoral sort of, "Ooh, everyone in this industry does things this way." Um, so yeah, is it a factor in your work? Does it play into your work? Is it purely a personal thing, or like how does it relate to work for you?
I mean, I would think, or I would say it's more of a personal thing. Obviously, working remotely, we don't need a bike scheme because
Mm,
I work from home. Although when there was hybrid working, we did have something like that. The bike scheme, and when we again for an American company, we always tried to, and again, I mean, climate change in America. That's again another topic, right? When you travel, when you see an apple wrapped in plastic and stuff like that, again,
mm,
every apple in a hotel wrapped in plastic. Um, but so yeah, there were things that everybody always tried to avoid. You try to obviously share a taxi. Whether the company did that to really help with climate change or if they just wanted to cut costs, I don't know.
mm,
But there were certain initiatives, volunteering days where people tried to do obviously something that was good for the environment as well, litter picking, all those kind of things.
mm.
For me personally, I mean, I wish I'd try to always remember to wash out my yogurt pots before I recycle them. I've got a husband who works for Rethink Food. Obviously, they do everything around sustainability. So, he is bringing sustainability and a sustainable way of living into our family every day. And he
Mm.
does, look at me when I don't do certain things.
Does that
So,
also mean lots of garbage in the house that's
no, luckily enough, not because I look at him if he isn't quick enough to bring the bin out. And we do have quite a good recycling bin. But, you know, coming from Germany, and I don't know how you have to bring that in, but recycling here in the UK is very different.
Mm.
I mean, I think the first time when I heard like, oh yeah, you can't throw that cardboard into the recycling bin, I'm like, why?
Mm.
It's the same material, no, it's too thick. I'm like, what?
Mm.
What sense does that make? Or you obviously have to wash out your yogurt pot. Why? You can't throw the yogurt pot in there if it's dark plastic. Why? It is plastic,
Mm.
and so it's obviously all the recycling kind of thing, is all a little bit different here than what I've grown
Yeah.
up with.
And why is it on us to work that out and decide and go, okay, right. So I have homework. So the company that made this has no responsibility for the products, for the wrapping that they put this in
That's a good
and
point.
bringing it to me.
Yeah.
I have to learn all about plastics and how they're
Yeah.
recycled and which ones I can use. And then I have to prepare those plastics that are supposed to be disposable, one-use things. I have to prepare them for this recycling.
Yeah.
It doesn't even happen, and then it all ends up in our bloodstream anyway. So.
That's it, exactly. So because you just said that, my son, my youngest son is still toddler age. He saw one of those turtle stickers or turtle images on the back of, was it maybe a baby wipe or something like that? Or like I don't know, I think it might have been a baby wipe. And he did actually say, baby wipes are not for the toilet, they are for turtle. No, I think you got that one wrong. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's it. You do have to. And, I'm very lucky that my husband understands, the sustainability way of living quite well, and that he can educate us and he can tell me off when I do things wrong. And that is not just because energy bills will go up in winter. That is genuinely because he says, do you not know that there's climate change happening? So we try our best and we try to teach our children to do their best, and help with that from my actual work. Not so much, I guess. You do come across a lot of situations where you think, why is that necessary? Why are we doing this? This could be done better. But that's not always what brings in the right money or the most money, right? To be sustainable, to live sustainable. So yeah, I think there's a lot that could be done to work against climate change more.
There's a whole conversation in there. I don't necessarily I'm probably not the person for it, or I don't necessarily know how to get into it. But I think with what you actually do in terms of the identity security stuff, I think there's a climate link in there, but I'd be really reaching for it if I were to try and kind of tease that out. But I think there is that. It's an area of change. Maybe it'll come out more in the social media sort of
I mean,
thing.
maybe the kind of cloud and on-prem, kind of thing.
Well, and also the
verification
of identity as well, and keeping that sort of permanent and kind of fixed. Because one of the huge problems, especially in this country, if you're trying to deal with any services, because they moved everything to kind of digital, web-based, online, they have no way of knowing anybody or who they are or proving. And the problem becomes the VOI, and that drives people mad because it's like, prove who you are, which sounds straightforward until you have to do it.
Yes.
And then it's a bit
while
harder.
you are doing that then leaves you open to all these attacks because
because then you have to put evidence of yourself everywhere.
And then you leave little tokens like Hansel and Gretel in the identity world. The least little crumbs that, can be followed, and boom, hackers are in and they demand all the money in the world of your company. So they should speak to us. Happy to give a 30-minute demo to anyone that wants it.
Excellent.
It's my 30-second elevator pitch. Throw it in wherever you can.
Let's move off climate change. So we'll do, I would imagine you don't have to do a lot. We connected via LinkedIn for this. And you said in our sort of preamble, mainly LinkedIn. So is it are you kind of regularly posting on there, or are you posting when you've got something specific? Do you have a kind of strategy, or is it very much like as and when,
Yeah. I think when I think of social media, I still instantly think of Facebook. Now, it must mean that I'm getting old because I'm not on TikTok. I have actually taken off the Facebook and Instagram app off my phone because I'm thinking this is a waste of my time.
Yeah.
It is great if you want to know when the next Christmas tickets for some sort of farm are coming out, because all those busy mums, have to put that into their calendars in September to get tickets because those things sell out. And Facebook is great for that. It reminds you of people's birthdays. You can see what your neighbor ate for dinner. You understand how much protein you need to eat per day and how to get it to look slim and fit and, sexy and all that. But it is all just numbing our mind. So social media can be poison, and often is poison, I think. And yeah, so I've got I cringe a lot now. Now I'm in that age where I cringe a lot. Where I'm trying to go back to, hey, let's do some paint by numbers rather than just mindless scrolling. Let's play with actual cards. I can't even.
Let's do something deliberate with intention. Yes,
exactly. Because it's just we are in that 30-second, or no, not even 30 seconds. What is it? 10-second videos. That we constantly watch, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, boom, 2 hours gone. So LinkedIn, I have to say, becomes more and more cringy, I feel. I mean, I started seeing now pictures of little babies on there, like, oh, so grateful that my company gave me a week off. Or, here's what my puppy told me about, business development. Things like that. Why? I get that we all want to be more personal. And so you do obviously have to go with the times, and now people might go onto my LinkedIn and say, hey, she does it. I do not do it that bad, so challenge me. But because I think, obviously people buy from people and not personas, right? So you do still have to be a person. You have to, and that's what I'm trying to do, obviously, on LinkedIn. Again, as I said earlier, I am responsible for our marketing strategy as well. I haven't studied marketing. I haven't studied social selling. I try to do my best and present myself and the company in the best possible way, which means we are humans. We have got incredible experience. And we are, the kind of no BS. I don't know if you can say bullshit here.
Yeah, you say what you want.
Leave it in, if not put it out. So we are the kind of, no bullshit people you would want to work with that tell you the truth, those mic drop moments. We've delivered a few of those at events, but I'm not there with a professional camera in the back and, sniffing that out. And yeah, I think it's going a step too far at times. And like I said earlier, I've got children as well. One of them is sort of, trying to dip toes into the kind of social media way. And we are quite firm about that. You have to navigate those conversations that, WhatsApp and all those memes and all those kind of things, it's not the real world, and whatever you put out there will stay there forever.
Yeah. And they're not your real friends. They're not your real friends.
No. And no, exactly. They're not your real friends. No. And, people literally just go from one thing to the next. So social media is a big element of sales. But I think for me personally, I wouldn't want to sell just through social media. We have to create a certain image, and that image we can only create if what we promise is really what we can deliver. So I try to do that. I try to keep away the jazz hands and glitter and, too many emojis, but you do have to go with the times a little bit.
Yeah.
But I certainly will never, ever, ever join TikTok. Never. I won't do it.
You can't make me.
No. Facebook does it just as well. There's little videos on there you can watch. No, but I don't know. Social media is great if you use it right. But I think I'm glad to see that there's a certain shift now coming to saying, no phones in school. Obviously, there's social media, there's age restrictions, those kind of things. And I wish there would be more people teaching their kids the right way, because again, if I see certain messages or certain images flying around, I sometimes think, does nobody check their kids' code? Do they not check what they are writing there? Do people not check in with themselves before posting something? So let's just be a bit real. Let's just be real and normal. And that's my spin on social media.
Well, the thing, so if you put a little extra step between the share, so you just click share and post. There's 2 clicks. if you put one another click in there, that reduces shares by 50%,
Wow.
because
Okay.
there's
Is
that
that the
extra
statistic?
yeah, so because there's that extra step, it's just
Wow.
that little bit extra effort that people don't
Yeah.
want to make. And it's
Yeah.
incredible, isn't it? And the reason that they don't have it is because that would be the effect. So
Of
it's like,
course.
we've got to
Of
make it
course.
as easy as possible
Yeah.
so that people do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I said I removed the Facebook app, for instance, off my phone, um, when I did want to go on now and then, I went through the browser. Awful, awful
Mhm.
experience. It looks awful. The colors are different. It is just not the same.
Mm,
Why? Because they want you to use the app because it's so much easier. Because,
mm,
then my shopping list was just getting bigger and bigger because Facebook told me I need these trainers and this handbag and this and that,
mm,
so yeah, they do this on purpose, of course, So again, I think people just need to check in with themselves sometimes a bit more and just think about, is this really the kind of image I want to portray? Is this really going to make me happy? Or is it better if I just sit here and look out of the window? I mean, when you go to those little events or birthday parties or something,
mm,
everybody that just has 2 minutes there, boom, instantly on their phone. And they're not
mm.
just always reading news or, yeah. And I'm just as guilty,
No,
I'm just as guilty, but trying
we
to
all
be
are.
more aware of it. Yeah.
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 And one of the things that I've come to recently, like the most insidious thing about it, because they do all this, headwear and glasses and stuff, and
Mm.
people don't want to
Yeah.
wear a big heavy thing on their head. But the
Yeah.
insidious thing about it, it's in your hand. What do you
Yeah.
put in your hand? You don't put anything in your hand that you don't trust. So
Yeah.
it's already got your trust.
Mm.
That's why that's why the misinformation and
Mm.
stuff works so well, because you already trust it. It's in your
Yeah.
hand. Like,
Yeah.
it couldn't be any more personal. Like,
No, no,
it's
true.
and then from there, it beams straight into your face,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like,
It's
yeah,
nonstop. Everybody that I speak to, when I say like, hey, actually, yeah, I'm not on Instagram or Facebook anymore that much. If you want to show me something, you need to maybe take a screenshot and send it to me on
mm,
WhatsApp. And people do that now, and they're like, actually, yeah. Like yesterday, I just sat there and, and scrolled too much. And I think a lot of people agree. Again, I'm not quite sure if that has maybe got something to do with my age, that I am getting older, a bit less cool. And I'm like, oh, I don't need this anymore. But yeah, hopefully more and more people, and especially young people, don't just get stuck into that world. And it's necessary. We need technology. Obviously, I work in technology. It's important and we need to understand it. But there has to be a fine line because it is making people ill
I
and
mean,
it's
yeah.
making the world not
I
a
mean,
better
the fact
place.
that we let children just go onto social media, the fact that we
Yeah.
ever allowed that is kind of ridiculous.
And the kind of parental controls, honestly,
Mm.
I mean, and again, I work in tech. I am in sales. I'm not a massive techie as such, but it's difficult sometimes to find your way around that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I need to do now? And where is it connected? How can I secure it? And, it's not easy. So sometimes for us, it's just easy to say, listen, you're not going on there, or I will check what you are doing on there afterward. And that's it,
Mm.
the actual human element of, I will stop what you are doing here.
Yeah.
Because
Also,
it is
that's
hard.
my role. Like, all of this, everyone wants to be nice all the time, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
no. My role as a parent is to be hated sometimes, because I'm an
Yeah.
authority. Like, I
Yeah.
know I have the life experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say something, I'm saying it for a reason,
Yeah.
largely.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
if you
Sometimes
don't
we're
like
just
it,
tired or
tough.
hungry, but that's it. Yeah. We also have to get hungry. But yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. Let's do the change question.
Yeah.
And this is one where you have
Mm-hmm.
something that you want to talk about within it as well. So, if you could change any three things about your work, and nicely you're placed because you're in a startup, so there's probably a lot of things that you're aiming towards changing. But if you could change any three things about your work, what would you change?
I mean, my own personal work, I would actually like to go back more to a hybrid working.
Mm.
Because I do sometimes miss that connection with people. And yes, we do have the face-to-face meetings that obviously don't happen every week. And we have been at a lot of events, and that's very tiring because it does involve a lot of traveling. But it's that kind of hybrid working that I do miss. But then I could snowball into a lot of things that hybrid working would affect for me. So for instance, now, like, as I said, I'm able to go and pick up the kids or drop them off or do something after school. And, because I can be very flexible with my work. If I would have to throw in travel, that would make it more difficult. I would be on the road more. I would have to travel some more. And, the kids would have to go to an afternoon school club, and that's just impossible at times. And it costs money, and it's so difficult. And, it's not easy. There's not a lot there to make it easy to not work from home, So hats off to everybody that does have to be in the office early and has to stay long, and, or people working shifts. It's so tricky when you've got kids. But for me personally, I would like to be in an office more, and I would wish it would be a little bit more easy to handle my workload, but also throw in travel to work in a co-working space or anything like that. Co-working is expensive. You go there and it's still all strangers in the end of the day, so it would be nice to go somewhere where all of my colleagues are, or even just like-minded people, So, I am in a few networking groups. So hopefully at one point, we can all be at the same place at the same time. And that's then for working purposes and not just for networking in the evening with canapes and nibbles and whatnot. But, so to have that working relationship with someone with the same like-minded people, that would be great. I would like more of that. Secondly, I would like to see more women in tech. So I'm a big advocate of them seeing women in tech, women in identity. Again, like I said, we've been to these events, and there is a stereotype. If you look around the room, there is not a lot of women, and then you speak to the women, you're like, oh, this is great, this is refreshing, and they're like, yeah, let's look around. It's all middle-aged men. No offense to the middle-aged men in tech. We all need to.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm sure you know this, but, before it got trendy, all those people would have been women.
Yeah.
Like, women were doing most of the programming and kind of grunt work of coding and computers and stuff. And then guys realized that there was going to be money in it.
No. And here we are. I know.
Yeah.
And they do a great job again, obviously it is a stereotype, and I know a lot of companies try very hard, to get the talent in. But yeah, I think, I'm a big believer and a big supporter of the kind of women in tech movement, women in identity. So if there's anyone else listening to this and, that says, hey, this is great, I want to join this movement and I want to support it, obviously, no matter what gender, there's a lot of men supporting this as well, which is great. So yeah, more women in tech, I think, is what the world needs.
So let's just, obviously, you've had children, you've been a working mum and so on. How does, I want to talk about the flexibility of it, because obviously if you're working from home, there is lots of opportunity for access.
Yeah.
And for people with different levels of, I don't know, their social battery or their work battery, professional battery, the amount of time that they can give to things, the time of day that they can give to things, depending on their workload and what they're doing. Really, wouldn't it be the perfect environment for women, mothers, like people who have to work kind of anti-social or out of office hours, non-banking hours kind of thing?
Yeah, probably. I don't really know if there's an actual reason why there's not more women in tech, and you are right. And obviously, then now we will have dads saying, hey, I need to be at home as well. So obviously it isn't just, the mothers obviously having to be at home. It's the same for parents, obviously, in general, anybody that has to go. So it is right. On the other hand, you could also say working from home does require incredible strength, because you cannot get distracted. You have to do your work. And mums, and not mums, well, dads just as much, and there will be a lot of hands-on dads and men out there that do look after the household, but if you work from home, you obviously constantly have the mental load of, oh my God, okay, there's a wash on and you also need to cook. I also need to do this and that. So it is also quite tricky. Sometimes it is easier to just go into the office and you are there. That's your, your thing. The only thing you need to worry about is, do I need a coffee or a tea?
Yeah.
And then you can sit at your desk and you can do that and you don't get distracted by anything else. It is quite ideal if you can work from home and if you then get the flexibility as well, because I know of some parents that work from home and they then actually have to, sort of shush the family downstairs because there can't be any background noise. There's still quite strict companies out there. I think with the kind of working from home and working around kids and, obviously as being a mum, again, let's throw out that stereotype that, it affects more mums than dads maybe, and with those kind of responsibilities, I think it's more having the support around it that is lacking. There is it's great to be at home, and I am fortunate enough that I can be very flexible and can finish my work even when the kids are there, because then I can maybe do my admin work. But there's not a lot of childcare after school. There's not a lot of clubs out there. Yes, there are some, but overall, it's not very easy to entertain the kids in the right way until let's say 5 p.m. To make it work. There isn't that much out there, so it's not really that easy. But yeah, maybe I need to look into it more, to see what is the reason actually. Do a bit of research on there as well. If anybody knows, hit me up.
I say put children back to work. Solve all the childcare problems. I don't really.
Empty in the dishwasher? My husband would agree with that. They have to do some chores.
I mean, to be honest, there's a strong argument for it as well, because it's kind of like, what are you learning in school? Especially in America, this thing, I don't know how true it is, but you've got loads of people sort of saying, people can't read anymore. They're like, we're sending people to university and they can't read. It's like, how did they get into the university then? What?
Wow. Yeah. Is that really happening? Yeah.
I don't.
It's because they watch TikTok videos, 10-second TikTok videos.
We can't blame everything on TikTok.
No. So the third thing, right? What else would I ban? Okay, so this is possibly quite industry specific, but I would ban the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Have you heard of a Gartner Magic Quadrant?
I might have. Take me through it.
So it's genuinely just a bit of a grading for companies, for vendors. So it ranks the vendors on the vision and execution. That's what it does. But the problem with that is it really often focuses just on their market visibility. So it puts the biggest companies into the top right quadrant, and now everybody thinks, boom, that's the company I need to buy. Now, if people are still with me now that have listened to what I said earlier, that, we obviously are the kind of no bullshit company and we have delivered those mic drop moments. The company director of Next Europe actually worked for quite a few vendors, and he was quite involved with getting into this magic quadrant. And it's not just Gartner's. There's quite a few others out there as well, and it just does that. But yeah, it isn't always what it seems, and I need to be careful now what I say, because this is recorded. But there is definitely proof in don't believe the shiny, big, this is the biggest company and this is the best company, because that doesn't mean that it is actually a fit for you, for your needs, for what you're trying to solve, especially for something so important like identity security. Right. And then you spend a lot of money, you waste a lot of time, you bought something great because the Gartner Magic Quadrant told you that this is the best shiny new thing to have. And then it sits on the shelf and you've got the same problem.
Well, then you're not going to get any the level of support that you get, because especially for a small business, you need someone who's flexible, who's agile, who's there and who will do it quick. That's what you need.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not saying that those companies are bad,
but they're for big enterprises as well. So they can do things on scale, en masse,
And these big enterprises often then supplement with other smaller things, because those big companies that are obviously in the top right, because they've had the money to say, this is where I want to be, this is where I want you to put us. They then obviously, they supplement, they've got the chance to supplement, obviously, for everything that this big vendor might be lacking. So, it's the kind of biased industry advice that I see, that's something I would change. But then again, if I would change it, we would maybe not be as successful as we are because we really are like vendor agnostic and unbiased. So it's obviously opening up a great big, market for us, which is great. But yeah, that's something I would ban because again, there's a lot of bullshit, a lot of dishonesty. And this is why I work where I work now, because this is obviously the kind of value that the company was built on. We've seen enough rubbish from big companies that we worked for or that we were involved with. And now we've had enough.
The recording stopped.
Oh, okay. I can start again.
So I'm I'll ask you that question again. Sorry. Good job I noticed there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second part of the recording, we're at the UBI question. So if there was a universal basic income, how do you think that might change things for you or your work? Or do you think it would impact things or not? Like, how do you think it would change things for you?
I mean, it might not affect my own personal role as much, but I think for the industry, it could be an absolute game changer. It could drive innovation, diversity, empower those underrepresented groups. For instance, women in tech, because it obviously reduce that financial barrier. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Why not? I think it would be great, and it could be a game changer for the industry.
I don't want to shortchange you on the amount of time, but this is kind of the part, because we've gone through quite quickly.
Yeah.
So, but this is the part of the interview where I throw it over to you. So if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, feel free to do that here. If not, because I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, you don't have to think of loads of questions all of a sudden. If not, where can people find you? What are your socials? Where can people get in touch?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn. I've got quite a clever hashtag that you can use to find me. It is hashtag I am Farina. I am Farina is also IAM Farina, which stands for Identity Access Management Farina. So that's how you can find me under hashtag I am Farina on LinkedIn, or you just have a quick look at our company.next Europe. I'm linked on there because I post most of the stuff that you can see on there.
I haven't really asked this. So where's your focus? Are you globally focused? Are you UK focused? Are you pitching at SMEs, or are you across the board?
Yeah, I mean, we thought when the company started, that it will be obviously like small, medium-sized businesses, but we have actually now been approached by quite a few larger enterprises because they also need advice and they need someone to say, this is what you need to do, because obviously everybody wants to save money and do things right. So I would say for that reason, across the board, we've worked with companies now that had no specific identity staff within the company. We have now worked with companies that have got dedicated identity teams. So it is a little bit of everything. I would say we work with anyone predominantly in the UK. We are branching out into Europe. We've got also a team in South Africa. That's a kind of parent company .next, and we are .next Europe. So globally, we can always help. We've got a huge network globally, but we try to focus on the UK. We've got an office in Glasgow, so obviously Scotland is great for us as well. But yeah, clients all over. And with me being German, of course, we can help companies there as well with the language, or partner with other companies. But yeah, it is predominant in the UK now with anyone. So anyone that really wants to figure out what is the right thing to do to save their identities and to do identity security right, and to maybe not waste money and not trust in like a RFP for pricing process where you just hear the same answers. Just a bit of advice. My boss always says advice is free. I'm in sales. I always say, no, it's not for free. We need to make money. But it really is. We are always here to just have a friendly chat with anyone that fancies talking about identity or just wants to learn a bit more.
Sales has an education level in it. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're guiding the customer, and you're kind of saying, look, this is the solution for you. This is your problem, and this is your solution.
And that's the thing. We don't necessarily say this is your solution. We tell them what solution is definitely not the right one for them.
Yeah.
And then they can obviously go from there and decide from there, because obviously that's a good thing about being vendor agnostic. We can work with everyone, and we don't have to work with anyone. When it comes to the big vendors, obviously with clients, we obviously help everyone. But yeah, it's we wouldn't just say we advise. We are advisors in the industry, and we try to focus very much on what the customer wants and needs. Yeah. And you know what I've just seen? Sorry, maybe that will throw you, but obviously because we've come out of the other window here, it says interested in Squadcast, which you are using, trusted by the best Spotify, Google, and #women in tech. Will you believe it? I know. We're everywhere. More and more.
So just on the identity front, are you, so for a company, is it for the individuals within the company and the brand, or is it brand? Are they two separate? Are they together? Like, just unpack that a little bit, because I haven't really investigated. Because I've just made the assumption that you're meaning the individual employees in the company, and you're trying to protect them, and it's a kind of, to prevent social engineering. So make awareness within the company of like, if someone's asking you lots of information, lots of questions about your company and you and where you hang out and what kind of passwords you like to have, then maybe you should.
I mean, we can also advise to that level. Absolutely. We can help individuals. We actually do have quite a few things that we often advise companies to use, when it comes to obviously simple things like passwords, and now obviously companies get quite clever, and they know that when people try to secure their passwords for work, they would love to use that at home as well, because they use their pet's name to sign in everywhere, so it's quite easily done. So quite a few products that we have suggested in the past actually do offer support and security for the individuals as well, which is great. But no, what we do is more for obviously the large enterprises. So an identity, if you think about it, is if you work somewhere, your identity is you and all the things you are connected into. So that's your, Slack, your Microsoft, your Google, that's your CRM, and everything you are connected into, that is your identity. And if somebody steals your identity, they then have access to everything else that's connected to those systems, and they can infiltrate that. They can steal your identity. They can clone your identity, and then obviously go and steal data, customer data, bank detail, things like that. So, if you think about how companies get hacked, it's not often so technical. It is literally imitating someone's identity. So that needs to be locked down. So for companies, it's like, is this person that is now trying to get access to my system really the person that we employ, or is this someone else? And there's obviously ways of making sure that the person that is now trying to log onto your CRM is really that person, and not someone else trying to pretend to be that person. So that's what we do. It is more on like a company level.
So, sorry, random question that I've thought of, but this is a recent bugbear of mine. So, what do we think of the security situation that we have in hospitals and pharmacies and other places within the country, where they're getting you to shout out your personal details in a public and open space? Do you think that should be happening in an age of digital identities and identity theft and so on? Do you think that should be done in a better way?
I mean, of course it should be done in a better way. I've actually got a story there. I don't think I could say that
It's
here.
ridiculous that they're doing that. Like, what? Oh, shout out your name and address for me in this public place. Oh, and also, do you want me to read off my bank card as well to all these people who have phones and cameras and recording devices around?
Yeah, it's and yeah, exactly. Because it is really as easy and as simple as that. To get people's information. Like I said, there is a story actually where someone stole someone's information just by saying, I've recently, my mum has recently changed her address. I just want to double check which address have you got, actually in a pharmacy. Bad, very bad. But yes, of course it should be done better. But I think, again, snowball effect, right? What does that mean? How can it be done better? How can a system be put into place that people will actually use. You know, in a hospital, you've got different levels there as well, different ages. You know, how comfortable are people with new technology? How can that be done in a better way? We do work with the NHS. We do have customers, you know, in those industries. But again, budget, you know, our schools and schools, universities, NHS, hospitals, they've got budget restraints. Again, another reason, you know, why obviously our company is a good one to speak to, because we can help try to do more with less and all those kind of things. But there's huge hoops you've got to jump through to implement a technology that does the trick. It takes time.
Or to make a change at a, you know, national or even regional level.
But and then there should be funding for it, you know, because there is just no money for it. And there's obviously technology is expensive, you know, and then it's not just to put it in and then it works. It has to constantly be monitored, and there has to be someone that
and
maintained.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's not an easy task. So I think for us to just sit here and say, it should be better, and that's ridiculous. But what is the actual solution? I think that is, you know, it's not as easy as just saying that. But yes, you shouldn't shout your address and full name and all that. I fully agree.
Date of birth.
Yeah, date of birth, exactly. Your mother's maiden name and your shoe size. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Is there anything that you want to touch on that we haven't touched on yet? Anything you want to ask? Anything you want to rant about? Anything you really need to get off your chest?
I know.
Then,
I think I'm fine. I just want people to be real, you know, to be real and to be nice and to be honest and to appreciate each other. And, you know, because we were talking about social media and all this, you know, in different generations. I think a lot of times people forget sometimes that you have to work hard, you know, it's like new generations and all that. That's another topic for another time, you know, with those kind of like working from home and stuff, you need to be dedicated to your time. You need to be able to work hard and stay focused, you know, and just because I don't feel great, I can't just sit down and not work. You know, I have to work and I have to stay focused. But again, that's a completely different topic. So no, I don't really have anything else to say.
But you have to be healthy as well. You have to put yourself in that.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to make sure you're in the right state. Like, you have to make sure you're fit for purpose before.
Yes. Yeah, very true. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's that saying, right? That work is like a rubber ball. When you throw it down, it bounces back up. But health and family, you know, those kind of things, that's definitely not a rubber ball. You know, you will always get a little scratch if you drop that. So, yeah, you do have to prioritize health.
Thank you again to Farina for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. Keep me alive and keep this show going by sharing it, appearing on it, paying for it, or buying something else from me. If you can help in any of those areas, please do. Check my website for more information. And if the information's not on there, let me know. Go to western-studios.com to find out more about what I can offer you and your podcasts. If you'd like to contact me about anything working hours related, then you can email me about the show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios, Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Go to western-studios.com and use the contact page on the site to drop me a message about either Working Hours or about your own Leeds podcast project. Keep up to date with Working Hours and find out about the other great Leeds podcasts that Western Studios is involved with by following Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/western_studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Western Studios Leeds is available to loiners to help them realise their own podcast projects for only £30 for an hour of audio podcast work or £40 for an hour of video podcast work. Email makemypodcast@western-studios.com with details of your project and what support you want to get your Leeds podcast made. Whatever your podcast question or need, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.